Build tab. In the Build tab, we're going to go down to the Output path. And under Output path, I'll configure that to C inetpub www root, and there's the bin directory right there. If I don't see a bin directory, I can just go ahead and create one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change things so now when I compile this DLL, it's going to be written into the bin directory and the Sharepoint runtime is going to be able to find it. Now the second step in deployment is going to be to add a safe control entry. So I'm going to have to go and say File Open, and I'm going to have to go back to that same place on the hard drive into the inetpub www root, and there's the web.config file. I'm going to open the web.config file, and I'm going to go find the safe controls. Once I've found the safe control entries, here's all the ones that Microsoft adds in by default into the web.config so they can deploy their own web controls on a production machine. I have to add a safe control entry here as well. And I'm simply going to copy one of the existing ones. So if I go ahead and copy one of these, and then I'll paste that back in, and now I'm going to go ahead and trim off the data they have in it so I can put my own data in place. Note that in all their entries, the assembly name has been added as a fully qualified 4-part assembly name. And so that's what you should always do when you have assemblies that are built with strong names. Since in our quick demo, we're not going to use a strong name, we can just get away with having the assembly be the name of the DLL file minus the extension. Okay, so as long as you haven't built it with a strong name and you deployed it in the bin directory, you're going to be able to do that. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to say that the namespace is litware, and I can put in for type name, I can put hello. What's also commonly done is just to have a star inside there. And what that's going to do is going to say that inside this DLL, any class that's defined inside the litware namespace is going to be declared as a safe control. And then finally, we're just going to come back here, take our web.config file, and we're going to save our entry. Once we've saved our entry, there's not even a need to do a IS reset. ASP.NET knows that the web.config file has been updated, and it automatically recycles the application to get those changes. Okay, so now we can revisit our site and go ahead and get our web part up and running on a page. Now, in a second, I'm going to go to the web part gallery. But what I want you to see is that if I go to the home page and I go to Edit Page, and then I go back to one of these zones and I say Add Web Part, what I'm going to find is my web part won't be an option yet. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this Add Web Part. And that's going to bring up this dialog of available web parts. And it's not going to be inside there because we haven't added the web part to the web part gallery yet. So in order to do that, we're going to go to the Site Actions menu, and we're going to go to Site Settings. Once we go to the Site Settings page, there is a link under the Gallery section to get to the Web Parts Gallery. So I'll go ahead and click Web Parts. This takes me to a page that allows me to see the web parts that have been put into the Web Part Gallery, and I'm going to have to add an entry for my new web part. Every entry is actually an XML file. And there's two formats of the XML file. Back in V2 for SharePoint, the XML files had DWP extensions. And we see in a V3 web part gallery, by default, there's a bunch of these old DWP files in there. Those are the web parts that Microsoft has added to the gallery automatically. When ASP.NET introduced its web part infrastructure, it also has these same XML files, but the XML structure is different and the extensions now become .webpart. If I had a .webpart file that I've crafted by hand, I could go ahead and click on the upload button and import the web part. I don't have one of those, so I'm going to use another option that was introduced with V3, and that's clicking on the new button. If I click on the new button right here, SharePoint does something really interesting. It goes and looks at the web.config file, And it basically reads all the DLLs that have safe control entries. It then loads those DLLs, and it uses reflection to go through there and find what classes have already been configured as safe controls and can be added as web parts. So this gives you a very easy way to add a web part metadata into the web part library. You can see that litware.hello showed up by default, so I'm going to choose populate gallery. Okay, so now I've added the web part, and I can go back to the home page and add this web part. Okay, before I do that, even though this isn't necessary for the Hello World demo, I want to drill down on edit. And if you drill down on edit, you can see the different things that go into the web part as far as the properties that are added inside the gallery. And if you click View XML, you can also see the bare bones .webpart file that was created for you on the fly when it added this inside here. As a developer, you're going to be creating these, and notice that there's properties down here with just a minimal property of title. For instance, if you have a web part and you have a zip code custom property you've added inside there, it's also the .webpart file that you're able to put your custom default settings for those inside. Okay, now that we've added the web part, let's go ahead and cite it on the page. So we're going to come back, we're going to go back to edit page, and now in any web part page inside this particular site, I should be able to go and find the hello web part. I'll go ahead and choose add, and there's my web part inside here. If I go back into the regular display mode, get out of edit mode, I can see the way my web part will be perceived to the user. And one more final demonstration I want to do. Let's go back, and I'm going to change some code. I'm simply going to change the message from hi to hello, and I'm going to Control-Shift-B to recompile. Now I'm going to go ahead and navigate back to the browser, and I'm simply going to hit refresh. And what I want you to see is that once you compile to the bin directory, you can simply modify your code, recompile, go back to the browser, and refresh. And you're going to be able to see the new DLL is loaded in. So it just gets to be a very quick way to iterate through modifying your code, recompiling, and being able to test that.
Thank you, Hassan. Now I think you have some idea about Microsoft SharePoint services, and also now you can do some coding using these services. Build up your skills. I must thank you, Mr. Ted Hassan, and our PLDC research in charge, Mr. Lakmal Rupasinghe. Enjoy with Microsoft SharePoint. Thank you.